You want to point at the elephant in the room. You want to voice the objection before they do. How do you get good at negotiating if you hate conflict, if you don't want to argue with people, if it stresses you out? I personally hate conflict, but I've built several multi-million euro companies. I've negotiated a lot of deals over the past 17 years. And here are 5 powerful negotiation principles that have helped me make more money, spend less, and get those deals done. Principle number 1, shut your mouth. When I was the CEO of an investment company, I ran a sales team of 30 people, and there was a surprising thing I noticed. The salespeople with the best results were the people who did the least amount of talking on a sales call. And you might be surprised, like, how is that possible? Aren't you supposed to explain your product and convince the other side about its benefits? Well, if you think so, then let me explain the 4 reasons why talking too much is likely to lose you a negotiation. First, people like to talk. So if you're doing all the talking, the other side might just be sitting there waiting for you to shut your mouth so they can get a word in. Okay? So you don't want to make the other side hate you by talking and talking and talking and not letting them talk. The second reason not to talk too much is to avoid giving away too much information. I've been in conversations with companies that wanted to sell me something where the salesperson reveals their cost structure and how desperate they are to land me as a client. I've actually had salespeople offer to give me discounts long before I expressed any interest in buying the product. And of course, at the time that I started to negotiate, I would use that information against them. If they gave me a discount before I even asked for it, well, that becomes the new starting price, and I'm going to push for discounts based on that. If they revealed what their actual costs are for delivering their service or producing their goods, well, then I know what is the floor, and I can push the price down toward that, okay? So if you're negotiating, you want to keep a lot of information close to the vest, and you want to be very strategic about what you reveal and when. Now, I'm not saying you never share information. You do need to share information at some point when you're getting something in return, but you want to be really strategic and careful about that. The third reason to shut up is that you might say something that the other side disagrees with. Now, in negotiations, you do have to disagree about some topics. That comes with the territory. But you can end up disagreeing about things that are totally irrelevant to the deal. So, for example, let's say you're trying to sell your house or your client's house, and you're talking to a prospective buyer, and you just talk and talk and talk about how great the living room is and how wonderful it would be for kids. But you haven't done your homework, and it turns out that the buyers don't have kids or they can't have kids and they feel bad about that, and that can spoil the conversation. So just don't say too much, because you never know what is going on in the other side's head, and what small comment that you make might totally upset the deal. The fourth and most important reason to shut your mouth is that a negotiation is usually controlled by the person asking questions, not the person answering them. If you're talking a lot, if you're making statements, you are pushing your opinion on the other side, and that creates resistance. But if you ask questions, strategically crafted questions, you can actually lead the other side down a carefully prepared path to the conclusion that you want. Okay? Now, this is most professionally done by salespeople. Here's a book I think everybody should read. It's Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Even if you're not into sales, the system that Neil Rackham explains in this book is tremendously powerful in any negotiation. So let's explore it a little bit. What is SPIN? Well, SPIN is an acronym, and it starts with S, situation. So when you go into a negotiation, the first questions that you will usually ask are about the other side's situation, okay? So if it's a sales conversation, for example, if I'm selling an investment product, which I've done in the past, I would always start by asking things like, so what are you currently doing with your savings, and what are your financial goals, and so forth. So you're exploring the situation. That gives you ammunition, it gives you information that you can use later on. Once you have the answers to those questions, you then move on to P, which is problem, okay? You want to either find out what problem the other side has, or you want to make the other side realize that there is a problem that needs to be solved. A lot of the time, especially in sales, the other side doesn't actually know they have a problem. You have to make them aware of it. You have to make the problem painful to them, so then you can sell them the solution. So for example, if I'm selling that investment product to somebody, I might ask, okay, so your money is sitting in your bank account. What kind of problem or concern do you see with that? And if they see a problem, well, that's wonderful. If not, I might need to ask a follow-up question like, Have you noticed how much prices have gone up in your country recently? I want to make them aware of inflation, okay, so it becomes a problem in their mind. And once they're aware of a problem like this, then I can move on to I. The third letter I stands for impact. With an impact question, we want to make the other side understand the impact of the problem, to make it more painful. So a typical impact problem might be, okay, so let's think ahead. What if another 5 years pass and you haven't started investing and your money is just sitting there in the bank? What would that mean for your ability to retire? Okay, so that kind of question usually gets the other side to really understand the painful impact of inaction, the painful impact of the problem, and it heightens the need to solve the problem. And once you've done that, you can move to the last letter in the acronym, which is N. It's a bit of an awkward one. It's need payoff, okay? I think they just came up with that to kind of fit it into the SPIN acronym, okay? But the basic idea is this. Once the other side understands there's a problem and it's painful, you ask questions that make them realize that there could be a good solution. In a sales context, I might ask, so would it be helpful if you had a good investment that could protect your money from inflation and make it grow over time? It's quite simple, but it brings the sale home. Okay, so this is a very, very simple example of spin questions, but this technique can be used in any kind of negotiation. You can use this kind of technique when negotiating with your kids or coworkers or anybody else. It doesn't even have to be about sales or money, okay? So if this seems interesting, make sure to check out Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Okay, and that covers principle number 1. Shut your mouth and ask good questions. Now we get to principle number 2. Know your enemy. All right, so in negotiations, the other side isn't always or even usually your enemy. Sometimes it can be a business partner, other times it can even be somebody you love. But whoever is sitting on the other side of the negotiation table, you want to make sure that you arrive to the negotiation prepared. You want to research the other side before you arrive. This year, our company had a problem where we lost 40,000 euros because of a series of mistakes by us, our advertising agency, and a big tech platform. Now, to solve this problem, I set up a meeting with our advertising agency. And before the meeting, I did some preparation. When I presented my preparation to my business partner, Walter, he was shocked. There were 10 pages about who the other side is, who's the CEO, who are the people involved, what might they want out of the conversation, what fears might they have, what kind of objections they might come up with. Basically, I did several hours of prep for this 30-minute meeting. Now, on the one hand, it might seem surprising. It's a lot of effort to put into a conversation. But on the other hand, I look at a negotiation like this as at a chance to make tens of thousands of euros if I solve it right. So doesn't it pay to do my research, to prepare well? And the same is true if you're going to your boss to get a raise or if you're going to negotiate selling your house. Sure, the thought of haggling or negotiating might make you uncomfortable, but if it can mean an extra 5,000 euros or 10,000 euros or 50,000 euros, isn't a bit of discomfort worth it? Now, in a moment, I will share how our 30-minute, 40,000 euro negotiation actually went. But for now, here's the point. When you have an important conversation coming up, make sure you spend some time to figure out who is the other side, what they want, what they are afraid of, what kind of objections they might have, what kind of dreams and desires they might have, and show up prepared. Your odds of success will be much, much higher, both because you will be in a much better place to negotiate and also because usually the other side really appreciates it when you show up prepared, when you show that you care. So that's our principle number 2, know your enemy, come prepared. Principle number 3, don't play a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game is a game in which one side is the winner and the other side is the loser, and it's really, really clear. For example, if you're doing a salary negotiation and the only topic you discuss is your salary, that's going to be a zero-sum game, because if you get a salary increase, the company loses and you win. If you don't get the increase, the company wins and you lose. Zero-sum negotiations are not a lot of fun because both sides are afraid of losing. They tend to get aggressive, there tends to be conflict, and there tends to be bad feeling afterwards. To avoid a zero-sum negotiation, expand it, okay? Discuss more than one topic at a time. So instead of just talking about the salary in a job negotiation, you also want to talk about your job responsibilities and the value you can bring to the table and ways you can make your boss's life easier, okay? When you have more than one topic on the table, it's much easier to find win-win solutions. And that's what it's all about. Zero sum means there's no win-win. But if you move away from these single item negotiations, it becomes possible to find win-win solutions that benefit everybody. For example, 10 years ago, somebody wanted to hire me to make an investor pitch deck to attract investment of 2 million euros. Now, these people, they didn't know me very well, so they were afraid to pay me a lot of money. They gave me a low offer. Now, on my side, I was confident in my skill. I knew I could deliver the result. I could have just tried to force them to pay me more, but probably they would have just said no. Instead, I broadened the negotiation. I said, okay, so your concern is that what I'm going to deliver might actually not be up to par. Okay, so let's do it like this. If the presentation that I prepare doesn't work for you, you don't have to pay me anything at all. You risk nothing. But if it works and we actually raise the 2 million euros, you pay me 30,000 euros, which was a lot more than they were planning to pay me. And they agreed. For them, it was a no-brainer because if it didn't work out, they lost nothing. If it did work out, well, they got 2 million euros in funding, so they could afford to pay me my 30,000. Now, one of the best ways to find win-win solutions is to ask this question. What can I do for the other side that is easy for me but brings a big benefit for them? So for example, when I was going to negotiate this 30-minute, 40,000 euro conversation with our advertising agency, I knew that for them, one major concern is how to get more clients, okay? And for getting clients, testimonials can be helpful. Now, in Latvia, the country where I'm based, I'm actually quite a well-known figure. So I said, well, I can come speak at your client event. I can do a podcast with you to raise awareness of your services. For me, it's easy to do, and potentially it could be a big benefit for the agency. So that's a kind of win-win solution that doesn't cost me much, but brings them a lot of value. And you can find these kinds of win-win solutions in most negotiations. Either you can do something for the other side that's easy for you, or the other side can do something for you that's easy for them, but valuable to you. So keep an open mind, look for these solutions, and it will make your negotiations go much, much better. And that's principle number 3. Now, I'm still going to get to how that negotiation actually worked out, but the point is you can find these win-win solutions in almost any negotiation. Ask what you can do for the other side easily, or ask what the other side can do for you easily, and your negotiations will go much, much better. So that's principle number 3. Avoid zero-sum games, find win-win solutions. Now, principle number 4, point at the elephant in the room. In many negotiations, you can predict the objections that the other side is likely to have, all right? And if you can predict the objections, it's a big, big mistake to wait for the other side to actually voice the objections. Many negotiators are terrified of objections. They sit there in a conversation hoping that the other side will not ask why competitors offer a lower price than you, or why there was a bad news article about your company recently. This attitude leads to failed negotiations 3 times out of 4. If the other side does bring up the objection, well, when you try to refute it, you are basically arguing with them. It becomes a conflict, okay? Plus you're nervous, you're defensive, it's not great. But it's even worse if they don't bring up the objection, because a lot of the time they will have it in their head, they will simply not speak it to you. And then at the end of the conversation, they're going to say things like, well, I need to think about this, or they will simply ghost you and the deal will kind of fall apart and you don't know what happened. And the problem is you didn't talk about the most important objection in the other side's head. Okay? So you want to point at the elephant in the room. You want to voice the objection before they do. For example, many years ago, I was trying to get a job on Wall Street, straight out of college. And I got some interviews at top Wall Street banks. I knew coming in that my resume did not look like all the other resumes they were looking at. I came from a small university that usually didn't send any people to Wall Street. I had a degree in physics, not in economics or finance, and I had no internships or other prior experience in finance. Now, I could have gone to those interviews and just hoped to squeak through, but I decided to go the opposite route. Early in every interview, I said, look, it's probably obvious that my resume doesn't look like a Wall Street resume, right? So here's the reason why I think my skill set is actually going to be super helpful for this position. Well, the proof is in the pudding. I got the job. I spent 4 years on Wall Street. It was a great start to my career. It gave me all the skills that allowed me to build an investment company many years later. I personally think a lot of it came down to not being afraid to voice the objection. Just put it on the table, discuss it, get past it, and keep negotiating. So that's principle number 4. And now we get to the final and most important principle. Don't be a hero. Let the other side do the heavy lifting of solving the problem. There's a natural desire for beginning negotiators to come in and be the hero that saves the day. You're going to come up with wonderful win-win solutions, answer all objections, and close the deal. But this approach, surprisingly, is quite counterproductive. You don't want to be the one solving all the problems. Ideally, you want the other side to come up with the solutions, or at least you want them to believe that they came up with a solution. Okay? And you do this by asking the other side for the solution to the problem. Because when you tell somebody what the solution should be, you're basically giving them an opportunity to argue with you. When you present a solution, the other side sits there like this and listens to it. And they judge you, like, is it a good solution? Is it a bad solution? What do I disagree with? Okay? But when they come up with a solution, well, they're obviously on board because they invented it, right? So remember that 30-minute, 40,000 euro negotiation? Here's how we resolve that. After some preliminary discussions, I asked a simple question. Given everything that has happened, and given our long cooperation in the past and hopefully in the future, what would be a fair solution to all sides? And the agency CEO thought about it for a moment and he said, well, how about we split the cost? We will eat half the losses, you take the other half. Now, the interesting thing about this negotiation is that legally, we didn't really have many arguments. The agency could have easily said, no, we're not absorbing any of the costs. You have to pay the full 40,000. If I had come in angry or aggressive or simply tried to push a solution on them, if I had tried to force them to pay, there's a very high chance we would have spoiled the relationship and it would not have helped because they could have easily said no. But by having a kind of friendly, cooperative negotiation and then asking them what they saw as a fair solution, we were basically able to make 20,000 euros in 30 minutes. So that's just one example of principle number 5. Don't be a hero. Don't try to solve every problem in the negotiation. Ask the other side to do the heavy lifting and propose a solution. Now, of course, this is only going to work out well if you've done all the other steps, if you've asked your spin questions and kind of led the other side down the path to be in the right mindset. But if you play your cards well, this principle can be really, really powerful. And now let me give you a bonus principle. Principle number 6, don't second guess yourself. In negotiations, you will almost never know for sure if you got the best possible deal. It is very easy to start stressing out and second guessing yourself. For example, if you bought a house or a car, you might sit there thinking, did I overpay? Did they cheat me? Were they willing to accept a lower price? And vice versa. Now, sometimes, sure, maybe you paid too much, but many other times you got the best possible price. And if you had kept pushing, there would have been no deal at all. So to enjoy negotiation and do it without a lot of stress, you have to accept uncertainty. You have to accept that you will not always get the best possible deal, and you have to accept that you will never know if you got the best possible deal. As long as you do your preparation, come in with a good strategy, ask good questions, look for win-win solutions, invite the other side to come up with their solutions, identify objections ahead of time, all the things that we've discussed. As long as you do that consistently from negotiation to negotiation, over time, it's going to make a huge difference in your professional life, in your business life. You will make more money, you will spend less, you will make better deals. Now, on any individual deal, you will never know, is this the perfect deal? But over time, you will do much, much better. So that's principle number 6. Don't second guess yourself. Any deal where you are better off with the deal than without it is quite a good deal. So learn from it, move on, and just make sure you do even better next time.